Real Deal with Akil. Sitting right here with the Houston Chronicle writer and Texans insider Aaron Wilson. Aaron, you was just at minicamp and OTAs. How did it go?
It went pretty well. You know, when you watch the minicamp, I thought the biggest takeaway was Deshaun Watson, how comfortable he looked.
Uh-huh.
You know, they feel good enough, the doctors and the team trainers, that they let him take off his knee brace. And when you come back from a torn ACL, that's a big deal because it's not just a physical thing. It's an emotional kind of a confidence thing to show that you can get it done without the brace. And I thought he looked real natural running and throwing, just like he always does. I mean, he's a great athlete, but his confidence in himself and in the knee, that's big because that means he can hit the ground running at training camp. And, you know, the idea is that they're going to run a expanded version of last year's offense. So Bill O'Brien, we haven't seen all of the wrinkles, and, we have some clues as to what they might do. But I think it's going to be exciting because they were holding back a little bit because they didn't use install the whole offseason. It was supposed to be Tom Savage. But this time they've had a whole offseason with Deshaun to tailor the offense to what he likes. And there's been a lot of input from him. I think there's going to be some Clemson-type plays, some things he did there. Yeah,
and that's something I predicted, too, watching the season last year because when I seen Watson play with this offense, it was when you had Savage in, it was lethargic, it was weak, it was cupcake-ish. Yeah. But when Watson got in, you seen Will Fuller, every almost 10 plays would be a touchdown to him. It will be an explosive play to Ellington and Hopkins. Now, this year, I feel like it's going to be more, like you said, Clemson style, more of his style. And then without you have Lamar Miller, who I think personally is a critical year for him as well, for Lamar Miller.
I think Lamar is on the verge of being replaced as soon as Deontay Foreman proves he can get in shape, get healthy, fully healthy, and be on the field.
Yeah,
I think he's a more talented back.
Right.
I think that, in terms of power, speed, wiggle, I think Lamar, whatever his best football was, it was with the Miami Dolphins. What we have seen from him is good hands. And, he's a reliable player. I'll say this, too. He needs an offensive line, and he's not the kind of guy that can always create his own play. He just isn't that type of back. He's not that big. And this offensive line was really substandard, and they might still be pretty substandard. They're the biggest X factor to me of the offseason because they are going to have as many as 4 new starters, and Nick Martin didn't even practice this whole spring because of ankle surgery, and who knows, he gets hurt every year, so maybe he gets hurt again, and they have to put Greg Manson. So Jeff Allen, I think it's probably done. They when they put you on the reserve PUP list in the offseason after you had a bunch of concussions, they're going to they were really vague. I think they're going to shut it down with him, maybe like injury settlement, or he doesn't play this year and something like that. But you're going to have all these new starters. Zach Fulton, who I think is a really good addition. Chantrell Henderson, who's gigantic.
Yeah.
Julian Davenport, I'm not really sure that is a real left tackle just in terms of quickness.
And he's the player that's supposed to replace Dwayne Brown, too, as well.
Right. So you're downgrading from Dwayne. And, that's a whole other – we could have a whole show on why Dwayne Brown's not a Texan. But, when you look at the line, that's critical. But, you come back to Lamar Miller. Lamar's got to really – step up, in my opinion, and play better. And, he was disappointed last year. That was the lowest average per carry that he had. He didn't have any breakaway runs.
No.
He's got to do better. And I think he will do better. I think the line won't be as bad as last year. I don't think it can be that bad. I hope not. I mean,
it can be.
They were allowing, after Dwayne was traded, I think they allowed the 3rd most sacks in the NFL from that span onward, which was the majority of the season. So, they really have a lot of things to worry about with the offensive line. And not just protecting like Deshaun, but open up some holes. And, when things did click last year, even with that bad line, they were the highest scoring offense in the NFL with Deshaun. That's why we have so much excitement because everyone's thinking, well, if they can pick up where they left off and maybe upgrade a little bit at some spots, and if Will Fuller plays 16 games, that's one thing that didn't happen last year.
Right.
So I think the Texans, they're a real boom or bust type team for me. I mean, they could be last place or they could be first place.
Yeah, and I think with that division getting stronger, you have Andrew Luck's coming back. We don't know how his condition's going to be, where he's going to be at, but that's a scary team because you still have one of the best quarterbacks, not in that division, but in the NFL.
Right.
The Titans getting better with Mariota. This is a critical year for
Playoff
him.
Team.
Exactly. Then Jaguars are a Super Bowl contending team. So with the Texans, looking at their schedule, to me, I think, and we can talk about that a little bit later in the show, but I think this is a big year for them if they can stay healthy.
Right, if they can stay healthy. And, you mentioned Jacksonville. Jacksonville, if they had a better quarterback, if they didn't have Blake Bortles, they would have probably not just made the Super Bowl, they would have won it. I think he holds them back.
Right.
They've got a great defense. To me, the best defense when you look at their front seven and their corners.
Oh, yeah.
And
they took one of our corners.
Yeah, he should be a Texan. Yeah,
He
AJ
should.
Boye, that got personal between the former general manager Rick Smith and AJ and AJ's agent Fred Lyles, and they did not see eye to eye. And I think it was hard for the Texans to really accept that AJ had become this ascending young Pro Bowl caliber corner.
And I thought that the Brock Osweiler contract hurt the AJ Boyd contract because I think if they never signed Brock that year, they would have had enough money to get AJ Boyd.
Biggest mistake they ever made, Brock Osweiler. But when they have that problem still on the roster, and you saw they were flirting with Tony Romo, and then they kind of sat free agency out. So it was basically like they were either going to do the Boye deal and not do much else.
Right.
And then, they did the salary dump, and, that's at least they saved face by doing that. And the Browns kind of almost did them a favor, I feel like, by taking Brock off their hands. But, revisionist history for some would be, well, Boye cost a lot of money. To me, corners are worth it. So now they're trying to correct a mistake by taking the Jaguars' third best corner, Aaron Colvin, paying him as their top corner here, and saying, hey, we think you can be an outside corner, when the Jaguars only thought he was an inside corner.
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see how he does. I know in talking to him at the end of the minicamp, he has a big chip on his shoulder. He thinks that he has a lot to prove, and I think so too. I think that that's an interesting investment because they're putting a lot of faith in him. It's not a giant contract, $34 million on 4 years, but still he's their most expensive guy.
Right.
And then you're going to chop it up again with Jonathan Joseph after he was, solid last year, but getting beat by the speedy guys like T.Y. Hilton. It was okay.
Yeah.
He brings intangibles.
Leadership to that team as well.
Kareem Jackson is a guy that I think has some pop as a tackler. Kevin Johnson, is very, very rarely healthy and gets picked on a lot, has a lot of penalties. He's a tough kid, hasn't quite lived up to the first-round status, and that's your corners. They did have the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and I think that's
we want to talk about that too.
Yeah, that adds a lot.
Yeah, because I've seen you've been covering a lot of not only just the Texans but Tyrann Mathieu specifically, and you've been high on Tyrann Mathieu. Do you think this can be the year? How can he help the Texans secondary if he can stay all 16?
He adds an intimidation factor that they didn't have, and I feel like last year with Andre Howell, they just Andre. He had like one good game. He did have stats, but he wasn't making a lot of plays. And, I wish him very well as he battles lymphoma. It's very, very tragic that he's diagnosed. But I think that adding Tyrann Mathieu, I think, gives you an intimidator. He is a smaller guy, but he's feisty. He has a lot of pop as a tackler, has a big presence back there. He sees the game very differently. He gambles. He takes chances. I think he is a little bit like Ed Reed in that respect. Not in that caliber, but he's a good football player, and he has something to prove because he's on this 1-year deal, and I think he'd like to show the Texans enough that they want to, do a long-term contract for him because I think he likes it here already. He feels this is close to home, likes the city, likes the guys, so I think he's a nice fit, and that's their biggest addition, in my opinion. Not Aaron Colvin, it's the Honey Badger, and
they also drafted Eric Reed, little brother.
Yeah,
Justin Reed. How's he been looking so far?
He looks pretty good for a rookie. He looks like he knows what he's doing. I think some of that's that NFL pedigree with his brother having been a Pro Bowl safety and showing him things and them watching tape together because they were both in the Bay Area at the same time. While he was at Stanford and his brother was playing for the 49ers. And I think he's a smart kid, very high character, good size, very good speed, and covers a lot of ground, very rangy. He's the top candidate. I think that when they start camp, I'll be surprised if they don't just have him lining up next to Mathieu in the first-team defense. So I think they'll probably do that, try to plug him in. And, healthy or not, I think Andre Howell was facing a challenge for that job from Justin Reed. I think Justin Reed was going to, eat into his playing time or possibly take his job anyway. Now he may take his job without a fight because, Andre will probably be on some reserve list, non-football illness. So they haven't done that yet, but they will, obviously, because he's going to be it sounds like he's going to need chemo with his diagnosis, and hopefully he does well.
Yeah.
Poor guy. I felt real terrible for him. Great guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the situation in the secondary. You have a lot of moving parts. You also have a new secondary coach in Anthony Midge. He was promoted from assistant. They fired John Butler after last season. John's now the Bills secondary coach, so they have a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of guys have something to prove. Whether you're Mathal, that the Cardinals should have paid him more. They asked him to take a pay cut. So that was insulting to him.
Yeah.
And then, Jonathan Joseph, is he too old? Kareem Jackson, where does he rank in this, echelon of corners? Kevin Johnson has a lot to prove.
Because he came out that injury.
I mean, some people, I don't call him a bust, but some people, it just depends how you grade it. If you look at
Could
him
be
and you say,
a bit disappointing.
Has he been to the Pro Bowl? No. Has he been as good as Marcus Peters, who he was drafted before? No, certainly not. So, I think Kevin has a lot to prove. Great guy, but, he's got to get it done.
And staying on defense, J.J. Watt, because the last couple of years he hasn't been healthy, and then he had the back injury, and then went out with the leg. J.J. Watt this is a critical year for him. How does he look right now in OTAs and minicamp?
He doesn't practice.
Yeah.
So, my opinion isn't very informed. The only thing I've seen him do is like run, but that was like jogging.
Have you talked to him? Anything?
We've done interviews with him, not individually. Like, I don't think anyone's had a one-on-one. But, JJ, he's talked to us several times, and he says he's on track, and Bill O'Brien said he's on track, and they expect him to play in the first game. When you break your leg, even a really nasty broken leg like that, it's a tibial plateau fracture. So it's right at the bottom of your knee, top of your shin bone. That's a weird place to have a fracture. And it's a lot of weight bearing on that bone, and that's how he fractured it against the Chiefs. I'm more worried about his back, that type of things, because, he's had the herniated disc repaired twice. Usually you don't need surgery for those things. I mean, I have 2 herniated discs. I just go to the chiropractor and get, alignment every now and then, get popped back into place. But, for a pro athlete like him that carries almost 300 pounds and is playing against these giant offensive tackles and his style of play,
too as well.
He's not a finesse player. He's a power player.
Yeah.
Especially at this stage when I don't think he's as quick twitch as he was, 5 years ago.
Right.
You're paying him defensive player of the year money. You're getting, just the bottom line that, JJ's a hero and all those
does everything
things.
for the city.
I'm just separating that from football and production, and I think some people have trouble doing that because JJ is an all-pro person and
maybe a Hall of Famer,
NFL Man of the Year this past year for what he did for Hurricane Harvey. But when you get between the circles, he'll tell you the same thing. I got to get it done. Yeah. So he has 23 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 8 games played in 2 seasons, and I believe he was paid about $30 million over that span. He's age 29. I think that for JJ, just in terms of pride, he's not just going to come out here every year, be hurt, not have the years he used to have, and just want to do this forever. I think that he would take himself out of the game if this doesn't work this year and say, hey, you know what? That's just my prediction. I'm not reporting anything. I'm just saying I think he'd say, you know what? I got to retire. Right. And step aside because 3 years in a row of being hurt. Yeah. That's you giving him every single chance based on what he did for you before, what he's done for the city. Yeah. That's beyond fair.
And this is what I said. I told people this before. 3 years ago, it would have sounded weird to say trade JJ because you're gonna get a lot back. Right. Because the pool kind of seen this coming. When Decline. the first season when he got hurt, hey, trade JJ. But I just knew for a fact that the Texans wasn't going to trade him because that's their franchise guy. It sounded weird back then, but now it makes sense. Like, maybe you could have traded him 3 years ago and got a lot back still, maybe.
Maybe at least like a 3rd-round pick or something. Yeah, because people are very buyer beware. Like, because the first thing they're going to say is, why would you want to trade us J.J. Watt? We don't trust the medical. And then they're going to go over everything, and they're going to see everything. And then, you can't fool anybody. Well, sometimes you can. The Texans got fooled on Ed Reed.
Oh, my gosh.
Ed needed hip surgery. The Ravens knew that. The Ravens pretended that they wanted Ed back, and they had no intentions of re-signing Ed. They thought Ed should retire, right, or take a year off.
That was
a
waste.
disaster. But anyway, I would just say on JJ, we'll watch him in West Virginia at training camp, and we'll think, okay, what's he look like in these drills? What's he look like in a preseason game? I thought last year, I was thinking that by the end of the season, if he'd played the whole year, just through his hustle and technique, I was thinking it'd be like a 5-sack year, not like no longer the 10-sack type of guy, where probably make like 50, 60 tackles and just be real solid.
Yeah, still have an impact, but not. It's
and
not
maybe you get Pro Bowl and reputation. I don't know how the voting will go. I'm sure like people would still vote, but yeah, I think everyone needs to understand one thing that happened with him. He refused to leave the field for a long time, and they just played him. He used to play 95, 100% of the snaps. They never rotated. They've never had a good backup to him. And, now could they rotate a little bit? Yeah, they could, but they never did.
Yeah.
And I think you got to ration JJ snaps. So let's say he comes back and he looks good like he did before he got hurt last year. He looked at least, solid, a little bit of wiggle and, wrestling with the linemen. And, I mean, he certainly wasn't being pushed around. I thought he was at least like a run stopper.
Yeah.
So if he's back to that, ration his snaps. There's a guy, no one talks about him, and his stats don't say it, but Brandon Dunn gave them some quality play last year as a rotation guy.
Right.
I think DJ Reader's really good.
Yeah, I like Reader.
Yeah.
I like Reader.
I think he's one of the better young nose tackles in the NFL, and I think that Joe Heath went backwards last year. But, he was undrafted. Yeah, Carlos Watkins was kind of disappointing.
Yeah.
He's got to play better. But, the D-line, they have a good coach in Anthony Weaver. He used to play here, play for the Ravens. I think they've got some pieces. They just need to put it all together.
Right.
JJ's the X factor. And Clowney, too.
Clowney, and that's all I'm going to talk about.
He hasn't practiced. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is Clowney's year because, for one, it's his contract year. And we've seen the history when the guys that has a contract year, they go off. With Devontae Freeman from the Falcons got a contract year. Albert Hainsworth, we seen what happened with that, but that contract year when he was with the Titans, he took off. Clowney, I think this is his year I think this is his defense for one. Number two, I think this could be the defensive player of the year for him. This could be his best year thus far. I see it with Clowney.
We're going to see what is he like because this and I heard knee is not that bad, and he's just kind of not super into the idea of practicing while his contract negotiation is stalled. They're not in a real active type negotiation right now. That thing's going slowly. And a lot of it is the same thing for Khalil Mack. I think whoever goes first is going to get less money.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. And I think based on production, Khalil Mack, just my opinion, should make more than Clowney.
Right.
Even though Clowney makes the splash plays. And Clowney is like, highlights are amazing. But Mack, that's a lot of production, what he does. But I think you pay a lot of those. I mean, I don't think either one should make like Von Miller money. I think it should be less.
Yeah, less than Von Miller.
But it should be a lot of guaranteed money. Now, they have control. They have the leverage, not Clowney. And I expect Clowney to start practicing and ease in when camp starts. He just had a very basic arthroscopic knee surgery about 4 months ago.
Wow.
And he's been for a second opinion to Dr. James Andrews, who didn't do the surgery. And I believe that everything should be fine with the knee.
Yeah.
He'll be really well rested, and he'll be Clowney. So if he's Clowney, like you say, it should be a huge year for him. They don't have to do the contract though. They really could let this play out. I expect August to be, if it's going to happen, it'll happen in August. I think they'll get together in West Virginia with his agent, Bus Cook, and I think that's when they might talk turkey and see if they can work something out. But the way they do structure deals, it's going to be a structure with a roster bonus and a large signing bonus, and then a lot of guaranteed base salaries. They're not like a real incentive base. They don't do any of that. If you look at J.J. Watt's contract, he doesn't have incentives. There's just that per game active and the off-season workout salary de-escalator. But, they're very basic contracts, and that's how they like to do it. Chris Olsen is a really good negotiator. He came from the NFL Management Council before he worked for the Texans. Yeah. So however the Clowney structure works out, I expect it to be compared to Khalil Mack's deal, and I think it could be a huge year for him. But to me, he's the more important guy right now than J.J. Watt. And what doesn't get talked about, I'm going to write about it soon, is the impact of Whitney Merciless. I've had people tell me Whitney is the best all-around guy they have. Because they feel like run-stopping, pass-rushing. because his moves are a little more polished than JD.
And
Clowney,
I think had a bigger impact when he went down the same night with the Chiefs as J.J. Watt.
It did.
That was a bigger impact.
You're just not supposed to say it because why? Because JJ is JJ. He's a superstar. But Whitney is a fly under the radar type of guy,
right?
And an excellent football player. But I think that just one guy's a star, one guy's not. Where he'll reach, his stratosphere. But I feel like
so important.
He's very good. And he signed kind of a average contract extension. When it was like a question of is he a bust or is he not? He's kind of like it was a little bit debatable, kind of like a Kevin Johnson situation a little bit. And then he blossomed with Mike Vrabel coaching him. And now, I'm very confident that Whitney Merciless may have 10 to 12 sacks this year and be the guy that cleans up while Clowney flushes plays and maybe JJ too. But if you could ever, I wrote about this last year. I was in New Orleans. We were covering a joint practice, and they were all healthy right then. And I was just thinking to myself, wow, what kind of wrecking crew could they be if you have all three of those guys all playing on the field at the same time?
Clowney, Merciless,
and Watt.
Yeah.
Which could happen. I'm sure it will happen for Clowney and, Clowney and Merciless. And, you can blitz Bernard McKinney, who they gave a $50 million deal to the other day. And I talked to him yesterday about it.
What do you say?
Well, he used one word a lot, blessed. He's very thankful.
Yeah.
He feels a lot of gratitude. And
he deserves it.
Yeah, I think he celebrated by going to the Galleria. I was watching his story on Instagram. He looked like he was having fun.
What would you do with $50 million? I
don't know.
Go on the shopping spree real fast on a Saturday.
Have some fun, yeah. I think he likes sports cars. He wants to take care of his mom and his grandma.
Reasonable.
He's a country boy from Tunica, Mississippi. He wants to do a lot of things for his family. I think he has a son. He wants to do things like that. I think he's not going to do anything crazy with it, but he'll be smart. And, B-Mac is to me, he hasn't made the Pro Bowl, but to me, he is a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's 6'4", he's about 260, runs a
huge
4'6",
upside,
40-inch vertical. He can cover backs. He's a good blitzer. I think he had 3 sacks last year. He had 10 tackles for loss. He had 95 tackles. He's smart. He is, to me, better or where Brian Cushing was when Brian first started. Probably just not as mean and nasty. I don't know if anyone.
And they should have got rid of Cushing 4 years ago.
They waited too long.
They waited way. Yeah. They could have got a lot of stuff back.
They're very loyal and sometimes loyal to a fault. And I think that's an admirable trait from the McNairs and the former GM. They like the status quo, but I think Brian Gaine, the new GM, if you don't get it done, I think he's going to be more liable to
and we got to get rid of. And can they please get rid of this quarterback carousel they have? They get the same people. It's always Savage. They'll bring back another guy like we just had him 2 years ago.
Brandon Weeden.
Like why we keep signing him back?
I think they feel like an older player like that maybe could give advice to Deshaun, but it's you have to change the style of the offense. That's why a lot of people question, like, well, why would you do that? Because Weeden can't, roll out and do a lot of those things. He's a pocket guy.
Yeah,
he is smart, and he helped them win a division title. I think it was 3 years ago when they put him in, and I thought he moved around pretty well.
Right.
I thought T.J. Yates was awful last year.
God awful.
So whatever he used to have, which was kind of like this knack, a little bit of like a Rudy type quality, that's gone.
Yeah.
Last year he was exposed. I mean, he had no zip. It didn't look like he'd even be throwing. I mean, I don't know how that. He knew the offense. That's the best thing I can say for him. He could line up and, run the offense. But Taylor Heineke was like a better athlete than him.
Oh yeah.
And they got rid of Taylor. But yeah, I mean, I'd rather see Joe Webb.
I know he fits Deshaun Watson's system.
Right. So you have to think about that. I mean, Weeden is the backup, and I expect Weeden to make the team. I do. I think that Weeden, they just, at this point, they've committed to it. And he's really thrown the ball well in the offseason. He's had a lot of zip. He looks good right now. And I've had a lot of people tell me that, hey, Brandon Weeden is looking sharp. And it was Sean Ryan, the quarterback's coach, another people on the team. I mean, not like he's going to push, the man.
But as far as
but just they feel good that, he looked good out there. He threw the ball well. I mean, we saw it too. I mean, we don't see every practice. We see during OTAs, 1 practice a week. Minicamp, we saw 2. So, we have a limited amount of information that we go off of. But what I saw from Brandon looked pretty good. I think he was in pretty good shape too.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the offense now. Before we get to, I want to talk about Hopkins. what do people look at DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's the number one receiver for the Texans? Do people around the league, people that you talk to, sources, do they look at DeAndre Hopkins as like a top 3, top 5 receiver, or it's like we still got to see one more year maybe with Hopkins? Because last year was a good year, but do people still need to see maybe one good year? Like, okay, he's really up there with AB, Julio, and Odell Beckham.
I think they feel like they know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel like that's great, what he is, which is, he's better than the Jarvis Landrys. He's just not Antonio Brown and Julio Jones.
Yeah.
Or Odell Beckham.
Yeah.
So is he in the conversation after the first couple names? Yes.
Yeah.
He's Pro Bowl wide receiver. He made All-Pro.
Yeah.
And, he's a guy that a lot of the guys in the league will talk about, man, he's got that dog in him. He is a real ball player. He makes the big catches. He is tough. He'll block. He goes over the middle. Yeah, it's 40 time. Who cares? He's open. Yeah. And he's always open.
One of the best hands in the league.
Great hands. He's big. He weighs almost 220 pounds. He's really deceptive. He's a real strong guy.
Yeah.
Like, if you were to get him in the weight room, you would see that he's, just a little bit bigger and tougher than a lot of these other wide receivers. He's not a diva wide receiver other than, like, he loves to shop and things like that. But who doesn't? But, yeah, he's just a cool dude that I think a lot of people like his style.
Right.
If you were to talk to corners, the respect for him is pretty big. Mm-hmm. We talk to people that have to cover him.
Yeah.
If you talk to like a Marcus Peters or someone like that about what is DeAndre Hopkins like, or really just any corner that lines up, and he always gets the top corner,
right? And
he still has production. To me, that's when
that's
you can
scary.
Say, that he, is outstanding. I've covered some good receivers, even guys at the tail end of their career like Steve Smith.
Mm-hmm.
And, to me, Hop is having a Hall of Fame type of career.
Yeah.
I think he's surpassing Andre Johnson's early production, and he's done it with all these different quarterbacks.
A lot.
So imagine, is 120, 130 catch season possible? Yeah.
Very.
Very possible.
Because how many he had last year?
I believe he was close to 100 catches.
Yeah. And every Sunday, Hopkins, number one target. Everybody knew the ball was going to go to Hopkins last year. And for him to still be productive. No running game.
No offensive line.
And no Watson the rest of the season. And he
still put up numbers.
That's very, very scary.
But would I rather have Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham, Julio? Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like they do something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to speed.
Yeah.
And size.
Exactly.
But it's just kind of like we're talking about styles now.
Right.
What does he fit? He fits this offense really well. But when you have him and Fuller, like even the game they lost, the last game that JJ played in, the Chiefs game, that was where I really remember the way Deshaun and Fuller had that chemistry.
Yeah.
Their 4 games together were amazing. So
he had like 10 touchdowns in the 4-game span?
I think it's 7 or something. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank, but it was a lot.
Yeah.
And at one point, he was tied with Hop, I think, for most touchdown catches in the NFL for a little run.
Mm-hmm.
And the signature play was the one where Deshaun switched hands from his right to his left to stiff arm the defensive line from the Chiefs to the ground.
And then threw a bomb.
Then threw the bomb and hit Fuller in stride. So things like that, that to me was like, other than the scramble against the Bengals, that to me that's like a signature play.
Yeah.
And
people forget, Watson. Even though the Chiefs won, people look at that game like, man, Watson had 5 touchdowns and no interceptions that game, and they still lost the game. And it's like, man, what could have been?
I think the defense was shell-shocked once JJ went down. I think they went into an emotional shell.
Yeah.
Because they were upset.
And then Merciless go down right after. And then I remember when Hopkins said, too, during this offseason, that him and the Watson combo gives him chills. Like, can this tandem be the best tandem this year in the league? Has he talked to you about his chemistry with Watson so far?
I think he can be. I think, yes, DeAndre did say that he thinks they can be the best.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Yeah.
To have that passing connection. And to me, it's about touchdowns.
Right.
Not really just yards and catches. But, yeah, I think that, could they combine for 15, 16 touchdowns, 20 touchdowns? Yes.
How does he feel about Watson, knowing that now he finally has a franchise quarterback that
he's really happy. He used to have to bite his tongue about the other quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. And he used to give us looks, or maybe after the press conference, and be like, hey, man, I think one time I just got in here and the quarterback thing was really screwed up.
Yeah.
And he just said, hey, don't even, you should know. Don't ask me about that. Like, I don't even want to get into it. I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to say anything. Say the wrong thing.
Yeah. So why was he last year? Because I was trying to figure out. I don't know if it was like a troll, but last year he was like Team Savage. This before regular season started, he was like Team Savage. This, that, third.
I don't know. I would say this. A lot of it is stuff that the fans don't see, or maybe some of the media. But I can just tell you, that was his boy. They came in together. Yeah. Like he used to talk about, like, well, if I go to Tommy's, Tommy will have the beer I like. They hung out.
Yeah.
They have, like different lives because Tommy is, he's like married young guy with, I believe they have a daughter, and Hop is young single guy, and so they have different lives. Like Hop is more social, like more liable probably, to, just. Socialize, and Tommy is like kind of, they have a kid, so it's a different life, but they're still their boys, and they would hang out. Yeah. And so I think that it's just his friend, right? And so what are we? We're loyal to our friends, and right. Plus also, until they tell you he's big, he's a company man. Like if they say that Tom Savage is the guy, then he's going to support Tom Savage until he's not the guy. Right. One of the only cracks in the armor where he's ever really shown it, and was upset, and you could see it, was when Brian Hoyer had that meltdown in the Chiefs playoff game.
I was thinking about that.
And I think he was caught on camera saying, like, get this guy. And he was cursing, like, get him off the field.
Yeah, get this guy off the field.
Because he had seen enough. Like, it was obvious he thought he should be benched. Yeah. And he was right.
Yeah, now he got Watson, and
that was a meltdown.
Thank God we finally have a quarterback.
That's why people are so happy around town.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Aaron, I got to tell you, I've been living in Houston my whole life. And I was there with the David Carr. I think David Carr could have been a good quarterback at the best but the O-line was messed up. Man, I tell you, last year when the Astros won the World Series, I was out till 4 a.m. I get home the next day. I'm just relaxing, thinking about, man, the Astros just won the World Series. Then all of a sudden I get an alert to my phone that Deshaun Watson was out for the season with an ACL. Man, I tell you that this whole city probably went to, like, tears when he went down. And it's like, can he please? I think if he stays healthy, the ceiling, I think they could win 12 games. Look at their schedule.
Right. He was on pace for 43 touchdown passes, Akil, until he got hurt. So he was on a Pro Bowl,
MVP
whether he would have been
year.
Voted or not, because he's in the same division as Tom Brady, who had a great year too. But, yeah, he's on that arc for Pro Bowl. Yeah. And if he could have played all the games, if they had installed him in the offense in the offseason, right? Hindsight being 2020, a lot of them different. But they got it right by the second half of the first game, and they started to try to salvage this thing. To me, I think that just they've got to be a little bit careful. I know that everyone's excited. Got to temper that with the need to run the ball, keep a good protective pocket, and he's got to be smart. Right. I know that he's not going to be reckless, but to me, he didn't get hurt because of his style of play. I think, he took a bad hit in the Seattle game. I think that loosened up his ACL.
I think it was because I remember he was playing with his knee a little bit in that Seattle game.
I think it got loose. Partially torn, probably. And
was that the same knee in Clemson when he was a freshman?
Two different knees. This one's the right, that one was the left. Yeah. But it also, to me, speaks well that, he made a complete comeback. So everything we saw, like, let's say the national championship game, where he's diving and being helicoptered when he's getting hit and he's jumping up. Yeah, all of those things are like the Bengals touchdown run when there was nothing and he just runs 50 yards. Yeah, so he did all of that with a repaired ACL. Yeah, it had been a couple years back, but so to me that says, you can come back. He just needs to not have a setback this year. Right, and if that means becoming a better pocket quarterback, if that's part of it, I wrote a little bit about that. And talking to Sean Ryan, the quarterback's coach, that could be a byproduct of the knee injury. It's because it forces you to work more from the pocket. Right. And I think he's a really good quarterback. I mean, I don't know if it annoys anyone, but sometimes I get to know people, like, they stereotype a guy that says, oh, he's a running quarterback.
He's not.
He's not. He's a throwing quarterback. And, he's not Michael Vick. Michael Vick, I covered a lot of Vick games. Michael Vick was a 4.3. This guy runs a 4.6. He's just real natural with it, like the way he runs, and he's quick, and he's kind of has field speed. He's not a stopwatch guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that he would beat everybody in a race that's a quarterback in the NFL. No.
Right. I don't like when they always label, if a guy can run, he's automatically mobile.
Of course.
I'm like, Deshaun
like Marcus
Watson
Mariota.
Yeah.
Marcus Mariota does both.
Yeah. Deshaun Watson is not a mobile. I mean, he's mobile, but he's not a run-first quarterback.
I don't think he wants to be. I think he wants to run to make a play. Mm-hmm. He's rolling out to buy time to make a throw. Right. If you look at his scrambles last year, I think he ran for 2 touchdowns, but a lot of it is, I'd say, things break down.
Right.
He's not just completely enamored. Like, he runs a lot less than, say, Colin Kaepernick did.
Yeah.
Who I think was, he's bigger than Deshaun. Probably ran faster than Deshaun did, at least.
Yeah, I think Cap was like 230. I think.
Yeah, he was moving, man.
Yeah.
In his prime.
Yeah.
Like back in 2012.
When Adam Smith got hurt and Kaepernick stepped in, yeah.
He was nice back then. But I feel like with Deshaun, his style is, it's a little college. It's dual threat, but it's pass first.
All the way.
Yeah. And I don't think they want him running 10 times a game. That's bad.
Yeah, I don't think they want that. So we could talk about the schedule now.
Uh-huh.
That they open up with the Patriots. This for people that don't know. They open up with the Patriots on the road. Then you go to the Titans. Then you got the first home game against the Giants. Then the Colts. Then you got the showdown with the Cowboys. I think leading up to that, they can either go 4-0 or 3-1 leading up to that Cowboys game, because I said the only loss would be that Patriots.
Right.
Because I see they could beat the Titans.
They always have to go up to New England early in the season.
Yep.
It's never really good timing at all. At least it won't be snowing.
Yeah.
But they'll have good weather.
They never come here.
Play against Tom Brady.
Mm-hmm.
The last time they came here, man, they put a whipping on them too.
No,
I think
did.
It was a December game. It might have been my first year here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they just, there won't be Julian Edelman, but there'll still be plenty of targets. There'll be Gronkowski, and they don't have Amendola anymore, but they still have Chris Hogan, and they have Malcolm Mitchell. So they have guys.
And they have a guy they drafted I like that's going to be the sleeper nobody's talking about. I think his name is Barrios from Miami Hurricanes they drafted.
Oh, okay.
I love the Hurricanes, so that's a guy that people need to watch out for. I
feel like, Akil, that they, it's unlikely they win that game.
Yeah.
Now, they could have won that game last year, and I feel like Bill's play calling wasn't great at the end of that game. But
that Seattle game.
He's got to work on that. Seattle game was another example, but New England, it happened too.
Yeah. And why did he, I know we get on schedule, I want to back on the schedule, but since we're talking about those 2 games, New England, Seattle, kept running the ball. He did not it's like he didn't have his trust in Deshaun Watson in late game situations.
I think just as a rookie, maybe he knows that he doesn't know something. He has inside knowledge that we don't have.
Right.
So it may be a situation where he knows more than we do about what amount of the offense, or he just went conservative and thought that's what I need to do with a rookie quarterback.
Right.
So, you got to have faith in the guy, but maybe he'll be different this year.
Right.
And also, he'll have had a couple years as the offensive coordinator in a row with the same quarterback. So Bill may feel himself a little more as a play caller, and I think we might see some cool stuff from Bill this year.
Right.
And you remember, he got into a groove with Brady, some of Brady's better years. Including when they had Randy Moss, things like that. So, I mean, I tend to be an optimistic guy, also realistic, but I feel like with Bill this year, it could be a little bit different.
I think so.
Because, I think it was important that Sean Ryan didn't leave. He had a couple interviews, Cleveland and Minnesota, for offensive coordinator jobs.
Right.
I think him and Deshaun are good. I think they have a nice chemistry.
Right.
But it all comes back to this offensive line. I mean, they might have – I've had people tell me, scouts, last year, and I don't think this is any big reveal. That's one of the worst lines in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Even when they had Dwayne, it was bad. I mean, you had a Pro Bowl left tackle, and then you get a contract thing and anthem protests. Right. And, his obviously lack of respect for the owner. You let those things get in the way. I think he should still be a Texan, and he could still be here. Yeah. I think that was if he doesn't like it, eventually he's going to show up. He showed up last year. Right. I mean, it is a little untenable, I think, for a guy to rip the owner. I don't think he was going to keep doing it. I think it was going to stop And it was also, he was trying to talk his way off the team. But
Right.
Yeah, that happened.
I'm like, the anthem policy. Have you talked to any players about that? And if so, like, what did they say about?
Not a ton. I think they're all going to do whatever, like, the leadership council thinks they should do.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you this. I would bet 2 months' salary that the Texans are going to be standing out there with their hand over their heart.
Right.
Not saluting the flag, but, like, respecting the flag. I don't get asked about it because, we're going to take roll call.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to be a team that does it. I think there'll be some teams that will.
Yeah.
I think some owners support it.
Right.
Like the 49ers owner, Jed York, or, you saw the Jets owner because he's sensitive to it because they're a Trump family, with his brother being the ambassador and appointed by Donald Trump.
Yeah.
If you go back and you look at it, Bob McNair is one of the biggest supporters of Trump amongst the owners in terms of financial donations. He was the second-ranked owner behind Woody Johnson. I think he gave over $1 million to Trump's election campaign. I just think it's going to be something where really it's not going to be handled through the owner, though. It's going to be like Bill O'Brien saying, hey, this is what our owner thinks. This is what we think.
Right.
We really think we should do this. And the players are going to be like, you know what? I just think it's going to become much less of a hot-button issue since the player coalition was really weakened by the lack of unity they had and the donations. The NFL literally is trying to money whip the players into just acquiescing. And I don't like the new rule. I think, just don't be wishy-washy about it.
It's just so unnecessary. Like, it was dying out. Like, I had on Cameron Wolf. He covers the Titans for ESPN.
Cameron, yeah.
We was talking about that, and we were saying that it was dying out after, like, midway through the season. Like, after week 10 and 11, like, the whole kneeling was dying out. But now the NFL brings it back. Like, we're going to make a new anthem policy, so all of a sudden we're going to flag you 15 yards if you don't.
Overkill.
Like, are you serious?
It's unnecessary. And if you think about Roger Goodell, and I feel like he's become a much weaker commissioner in recent years and, a lot more attuned to public pressure and public relations and different.
And the owners and all of that.
Oh, boy. Big time. To me, it's really time for some change, some new blood. I think it's with the commissioner. That's my opinion. I think that they need to think about change.
Right.
And start looking for a new CEO, whether he comes from the league ranks or maybe somebody from corporate America or something. But they need to find someone. They need a new leader. I think Condoleezza Rice would be a great commissioner, and she's a big football fan. I think it'd be interesting to see someone like maybe out of the box thought, but they're not going to do that. These are the owners. It's going to be someone, because you remember the commissioner works for them. Yeah,
and the owners want somebody they can probably control.
I bet he doesn't make as much money the next guy as Roger Goodell.
Nah.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he came from like media or something like that.
And Goodell made some good. I mean, he made some good changes, but it's just the bad stuff overlooks the good.
There was a time though, where players, there was a lot of problems, and guys were acting up. Like Pac-Man Jones was like in trouble like every week.
Yeah.
Ben Roethlisberger was behaving pretty badly, whether he was guilty of any crimes. Obviously, I guess the law didn't feel that way, but he was obviously not being a gentleman. Let's put it mildly. So, and I think he was trying to be fair too, because if you look at it, like a lot of times they say, "Well, is he being tougher on black players?" I think he was trying to be like, back then at least, pretty uniform.
Right.
A lot of guys though feel like there's too many suspensions and
too many guys has been like Ray
the
Rice.
Ezekiel Elliott thing was that was debatable. Whether he
and you was in Baltimore with the Ray Rice thing, right? I think he was here, but you know about that situation very well.
No, I covered it.
Yeah, and then Ray Rice is like,
no, we broke the story. We got a call from the newsroom from casino security guard. He called. He left his information. He didn't leave his name.
Yeah.
And so I called him back. They gave me the message.
Right.
So I got on the phone with him. Then I started talking to people, started asking around. And we're not far from Atlantic City. And then we started to get the story.
Right.
And so then we, mobilized. I had enough confirmation. So then once we had called the New Jersey police enough, they were prepared to do, to go ahead and announce it to us. And so then we had a police reporter, like basically camp out at her office, knocking on the door. And she's like, here. And then we went with the story. And it was really shocking to me just because having known Ray, and not knowing that side of him. And then after that fact, him wanting forgiveness, being apologetic, talking to me. I sat down with him when he was trying to get back in the league.
Yeah.
For an hour in a Baltimore suburb, and we talked about everything. I asked him every question I could think of.
Right.
And he cried, and it was very sad. Nice to me, the ending of that story, even though he never played again. Him and his wife are together. They have more kids.
Okay.
He's a high school football coach. He talks to youngsters about the mistake he made.
So he's coaching high school football right now.
He coaches high school at his high school.
Yeah, so there's no chance in league no more. It's like,
well, it's been too many years. And remember, he was a declining player anyway. His weight had gone up. He had injuries. But my point being is, he was like a pariah, like public enemy number one almost. And, at least in his community, he's still Ray Rice. And, I mean, some people will always think of him just, that's all he is. He's a wife beater. Mm. And domestic violence is a very complicated issue. And I wouldn't pretend to understand everything that goes into that, and it's foreign to me. But I know that Ray and his wife, they went to counseling and worked on their marriage, and hopefully they're happy and everything is good for them. But that's my understanding is that they changed, and so I covered all that. I covered Jamal Lewis when Jamal had legal issues and went to jail. I covered Terrell Suggs. I covered some stuff with him. We had a lot of domestic violence actually on that team.
And then the Ray Lewis thing back in 2000.
I got there in 2001, so I was there the year after they won the Super Bowl for the first time, and that Ray by then had this whole sort of rise from the ashes, Phoenix type of rise from murder suspect to Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah.
So he made it all the way back, and he would always be a controversial figure. That would never end. Like when we go to games, especially like in Cleveland, there's people in orange jumpsuits. There's guys wearing like a Ray Lewis sign or orange jumpsuit with a Ray Lewis jersey. Things like that.
Still doing it.
They did that for years. They did that for like 5 or 6 years. They were still doing it. Yeah. We would go there and we'd go down the field after the game. They were still doing that.
Wow.
But, I covered all those guys. Ed Reed, his entire career, most of Ray Lewis's career. Mm-hmm. And then I got to come down here. John McClain, my friend, he told me, hey, we talked about it for years. He's like, hey, I got to know him when I was covering the Jaguars, I think it was like 1997, when I was really young. And he said, hey, are you interested? You want to come down? I said, yeah. I had like 2 weeks to decide. And my wife at the time, she was like, she passed a couple years back, Samantha, but she was like, if you want to come down, we'll move to Texas. So I came down here 4 years ago and really enjoy it, and like working for the Chronicle, and get to cover a pretty interesting story. I think the next stories for the Texans are going to be a really interesting chapter.
Right. So and I have you on a lot more. I have you on a lot more during football season, because I love, when it comes to football, I'm at home. I'll probably be at a sports ball watching it.
Nice.
I have my DraftKings fantasy going on.
I appreciate you inviting me on.
This is fun. For sure.
I don't live too far from here, so it's anytime you want to have me on.
So one more question. How far do you see the Texans going? Like, what is your over and under? So if the over and under is 9.
I think they're like a 10-win team, and that's going to be just good enough for the wild card. Mm-hmm. To me, I think of it differently. I have to look at the Jaguars as being a lot better than the other teams in this division.
Oh, you see them improving. The Jaguars?
The Jaguars are still really good.
Yeah.
Why would their defense be anything but better? Because you're going to have a second year of A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey together. You're going to have all the speed they have at linebacker, like Telvin Smith. Mm-hmm. All the good defensive linemen they have, Calais Campbell and Fowler and all these guys. So there's nothing different about them. And Doug Marrone, you can see they play hard for him. And I think Leonard Fournette, if he's healthy, he's going to be better this year. I think he had some things to learn as a rookie. Right. He's a weapon. Could they be a little more gifted at wide receiver? Sure.
Yeah. I think the receiving core is nice. You have
solid
Cole. You just got rid of Hearns and Robinson, but they got Cole and Marquise Lee.
Yeah, he can run.
That can be.
Bortles, to me, though, it was funny last year. That was one of the funny things that I think went under the radar. You said that J.D. Clowney did not respect Blake Bortles.
Not at all.
He said he's trash, and he said he's still trash. He doubled down on it. And, Blake got the last laugh. But, Blake is not great.
It's like the league doesn't respect Blake like that. It's like...
it must be something. They came in together. he never really thought Blake was very good at the start of his career. Blake and him, I think, were both up for, they were both, obviously he went first, but, Blake was, someone that I think in the pre-draft circuit, they would just run together. Maybe they don't like each other. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem like he respects Blake.
Not at all.
If he liked him, I guarantee he'd bite his tongue and be like, yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, it's like some of the players on the Jaguars like, God, dog, Blake, like, it makes them mad or something.
Well, he was close to being benched, and then now he's under this sort of Band-Aid deal, but, he's not really paid like a great quarterback.
Yeah.
But he's their quarterback,
mm-hmm.
and Marrone is comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And they've proven, I don't call it everything, not everything compares to Baltimore, but they're basically like playing an old school style. They run the ball, they play defense.
Yeah.
It's not real wide open. You don't really throw the ball as much as some other teams.
Yeah.
A quarterback that runs. It's different.
I think they can. I'm looking at their schedule now, and I looked at it before.
They got first place schedule, but
yeah, they got the Bills, Dolphins, Jags, Broncos. Well, besides the non-division games, Broncos, Redskins, Titans, Browns, Jets, Eagles, Jags. I mean, besides Jags, but I'm probably going a bit overboard. I think 12 is the ceiling. That's the most they can win. But like around like 10 is like the floor for them. Between 10 and 12 for me.
To me, they're better than Indy, and they're
better than Tennessee.
Not yet.
You don't think so? If everybody's healthy.
Well, the thing is, like, look at Tennessee. They're going to be better with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, you got
they've been drafting
Malcolm
pretty
Butler.
Well. They're fixing their defense.
Mm-hmm.
John Robinson's a good GM.
Yeah,
Guy that came from New England.
They signed Malcolm Butler too.
Yeah,
yeah. So
he'll have a lot to prove. Ooh.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm glad that the Titans picked him up. So now you have every team in that division has a number one corner for Hopkins. You have Jalen Ramsey.
I love those because I like to write matchup stories.
Right.
And then watch that. It's not like the NBA where everything is a one-on-one, but I like stuff like that. And I think it just sets itself up well for our, previewing of the games, just being selfish as a writer. I like, clear storylines, and to me, those are good ones.
Right.
But Will Fuller might clean up this year. And I'm not a fantasy football player anymore. I don't play. I find it too distracting for me. I was trying to write my stories, but I might think about some fantasy owners. Maybe you should draft Will Fuller. If you don't get Hopkins, think about Fuller. Yeah, especially if he is healthy. Right now, he is.
I can pick up Fuller on a couple of weeks on DraftKings since it's week by week. So
there you go.
I might go with Fuller on a week. If I see like a week game or something like against the Browns, like, oh, that's a good one. I'm gonna stack up my team with Hopkins, Fuller, and Watson. I might do that.
I like it. I think Deshaun is going to be a very trendy fantasy.
Yeah, Watson might be like the first quarterback taken off.
Yeah,
I'm looking like, because quarterbacks go like late first, maybe second round. You want to do your first round running backs, but then I think Watson could be a good one. Yep. But I appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for having me in. Appreciate it.
Aaron Wilson, Real Deal with Akil. Done. We out.